Okay, good afternoon, good morning, and good day, world. I hope you can hear me. Am I audible in your side? I hope you hear me and I am audible. Okay, so good day. Welcome to our Institution of Global Professionals free webinar. Thank you for all joining and stay with us again till the end. I am your host again. It is Tuesday. So we love to learn every Tuesday and I am your host, Teacher Nuri from the Philippines. I am proud and honored to be associated with RGP as a global member and a volunteer host for this prestigious event. Thus, don't forget to tag your friend, mention your friends in the comment box. So let's watch together and learn together. So we believe that power is gained by sharing knowledge, not hoarding it. So we know that every day, every single day, we do have a lot of our webinars, and every day we have gained a lot of audience and participants, particularly the educators around the world. So let us give a short background. What would be the concept of IGP? So, IGP is a leading and online skill development institute with thousands of learners worldwide. We make it get and able to use of every knowledge seeker to originate personality, more ambitious, make confident to face any circumstances, and develop own skills. We are entrusted with international recognition. We believe that it is not effective to increase one's skills just by acquiring formal educations. So, we provide effective training and consultation to generate proficient generation all over the world. Our mission is to empower people, particularly with the educators, and enhance their own skills. Now, we already completed 226 webinars, and it is indeed uh, it is indeed all the webinars that we have is successful. And today we are presenting a webinar number 627 with the title of the topic for this session, Language and Identity, with the speaker number 627. The speaker is no other than Miss Janeline Villar Resurrection. Okay, so let's start with the program. So, with our mantra, what would be our mantra? Feed your skills. Now it's time to start the program. So, Miss Jenaline Villar Resurrection was a university instructor, professional educator. She is a language competition trainer, a thesis advisor, panelist in a University of the Cordillera. Okay, so please we welcome Miss Janeline Villar Resurrection. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Great afternoon, Ma'am Nori. Great afternoon, everyone. Thank you, IGP, for having me. Okay, so this is my first time, so I'm a little bit nervous. Okay, so but anyway, I'll do my
It's
best.
okay.
Okay, so if
Okay.
you will give me a few minutes, I just would like not to take this opportunity to greet my co-teachers in the University of the Cordillera, particularly the language department, Dr. Greg Lambineso, Dr. Romeo Javines, Dr. Sarah Corazon Seriaco, and Dr. Alangsab, okay, Virginia Alangsab, and my friends, Alma Biscocho and Janice Kalugan, and also my students. I hope that they are joining me today here. Okay, so
I
thank you very much
believe,
for,
yeah,
okay,
I
thank you
believe they
very
are
much.
here, ma'am. Okay.
Okay,
Before you start, ma'am, we will greet some of our participants for today.
yes,
Thank you for
please.
joining us, Ma'am Rumilia, Ma'am Cyril, Kim, Aki Adhikari from Sipautahu, Merchan, Robeo, Renzi. Thank you for joining us. We have here Joanna, Aiki, Evelyn, Isaiah, Kate, Carmela, Charlene. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you, sirs, for joining us today. Okay, ma'am, I will not prolong, so you could start and you could start sharing your topic. Good luck, ma'am, Janeline. Take it
Okay,
away.
thank you, ma'am. Okay, pahabol. Okay, so can you see my screen now?
Yes, ma'am, we are.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so wait for a while. Okay, ma'am, can you see my screen?
Yes, ma'am. We can see it.
Okay. So, great afternoon, everyone. I hope that you're feeling great. Okay, so this will be an afternoon of learning. Let's revisit some aspects or some concepts that I believe you hear on a daily basis. But hopefully, my discussion this afternoon will make you see these terms in entirely different light. Okay, so my presentation this afternoon actually revolves around the following. Okay, I will discuss what identity is. Under identity, what are the types, the identity formation, how do we show ourselves to the world, and then we proceed with language and the connection of the two. What is the role of language in the development of identity, and how do language and identity intersect? Okay, so that's the agenda. So before I'll start, now, when we are asked the question, because I believe I deleted this next slide and I move it somewhere else. Okay, so before we go further, I would like to ask, if I were to ask you who are you, what will be your first answer to who are you question? Okay, so I could not see your comment. So I believe some of the answer will be you will be giving your name. Okay, so your name. So I'm Ginaline. Okay, so I will show. So the question is, who am I? Who are you? So that's the question basically when we would like to know who we are and our identity is. Okay, so I will show. I am Ginaline. Okay, so and I put some pictures here because aside from language, we can also project who we are by the way we dress. Okay, so and also our occupation is also one aspect of our identity. So here in this picture, I was actually in one of the classroom, the University of the Cordilleras, about to start a lesson. Okay, and that's English 501, Introduction to Social Linguistics, to Auto Linguistics. And this is another photo of mine that I did for professional purposes. Okay, so there is a difference. Even if you're the same person, you project yourself entirely differently according to the purpose. So that's one of the factor on how you are going to project who you are. Okay, so that's first you introduce yourself, and also I am Ginaline. You say I am a Filipino. Actually, I'm looking for a particular image of a Filipino, okay, that more or less separate us from the rest of the world. And I hope I come up with the right one. So here, the Filipinos are happy people. You can see their smiles all over. They're holding their flag. They love their country. And of course, the ever-present cell phone, okay, that will capture every moment. So Filipinos are fond of groupie and selfie. I am one of those. Okay, I can relate with that. That's also one of my identity. Every time I go out with my friends, okay, I always have my phone with me, and my purpose is to document the moment. Okay, so that I am Ginaline, I am a Filipino. So first, I gave my name, I gave my national identity, and sometimes we also give where we live. Although some of you might differ in the way you introduce yourself. So I live in Baguio City, Philippines, and Baguio is considered to be the summer capital of the Philippines. Okay, what can you say? Students are here. Ayan, my students, Baguio is the summer capital of the Philippines. So I gave you three vital information about myself: my name, my nationality, and where I come from or where I am staying from. And why is it that I highlighted that? Okay. Actually, I have read one source and it tells me our name, our national origin, and our citizenship. Okay, so that's Gina Lynn. Okay, Filipino. I come from, even if I live in Baguio, for the last 22 years, actually, I was a native of Mindanao, particularly Sultan Kudarat. So sometimes I do not give that information to my students. Okay, I because they might see me in an entirely different light. There is a reason for that. I will discuss that later on. Why? Because people have fixed ideas and stereotypes. We cannot do away with stereotypes. So people, when they hear a particular group of people, okay, when they hear, okay, Koreans, Chinese, Japanese, they have these stereotypes. And so when they see these people, that stereotype will be put into high gear. And the sad thing about stereotypes is that most of the time, more often than not, they are the inaccurate ones. And the sad thing also is that they are the one that dictates whether we are being embraced or being accepted or ignored or rejected. That's why we have to be very careful on how we present ourselves or our identity, because people can either accept us or reject us or love us or totally ignore us. I believe you have experienced that you meet people and you hate them for no valid reason. That's why you just hate them. Okay, so that's one. Okay, so um, what is now identity? So as any other term, as everything, we have to come up with a definition of a thing in order for us to understand. And as we go further, okay, we will dig deep into this identity. So identity is your sum of total characteristics. So it includes your gender, your age, your race, where you come from, your nationality, your sexual orientation, your religious beliefs, everything, and everything also in between. Okay, that allows you to show to the world who you are. But one thing is sure, class, whatever it is, okay, so I said class because I am highlighting now my being a teacher. I just take this as, a lecture in my class. Okay, this allowing people to be part of one and another culture at the same time. So, in the audience, I believe many are from the Philippines, and there are from Bangladesh, Pakistan, India, and all other parts of the world. They have their own identity by virtue of their nationality, okay, and religious belief and orientation, sexual orientations, whatever other orientations. But this orientations actually can change, okay? We can actually change them depending on our purpose. That's why here in the definition, all of these depends on context. I will talk about context later on, and sometimes even on free choice. So we have our choice. So that's a definition of identity, some more or less total one, because it's just not just the some characteristic of who you are, but what you do with it at a particular time in your life. Okay, so let's move on to the next. And this is, how do we present our identities to the rest of the world? How do we project who we are? Aside from answering questions so that people will know who we are, there are a lot of ways, either consciously or unconsciously, that you project yourself to the world. Number one is, of course, the way you dress. Okay, the way you dress is one indicator. Are you a formal person? Are you a um, athletic person? Okay, are you a fashionista? Okay, or are you someone who would rather be invisible? So that's you actually project that by your choices, so your clothes, your hair. So if you want to be noticed, okay, you can color your hair red, glaring red, or if you want to hide, you can color it black. Okay, or accessories, tattoos, all that actually constitute our identity. The way we behave. And I think you will agree with me that the way we behave will depend on the people we are with. So if we are with with our friends, we can freely express who we are. But with other people we don't know, strangers for example, we behave differently. That's what we call choices that we make, so that we can more or less control the way we project ourselves to the world. Another is the music that we listen to. Okay, what choice of music? Uh, Personally, on my end, no, I prefer old. the old classical music, the 1950s music, and sometimes my children cannot appreciate it. But I always tell them, okay, the old songs are better than the new ones. That's how I look at it. That's how I look at the world. It's part of my identity, and they can also contradict with me. But that's my choice. That's my the way I project my identity to the world. Though the sports we play or watch, okay, that's also one. The books we read, our hobbies, our cars, everything around us. Now, I would like to highlight the third one, the way we speak. Okay, so the way we speak actually is what we call part of our linguistic identity, but we will discuss that in detail later on. But these are the different ways we can project ourselves. So maybe we can pause a moment and try to look at these different ways. And if you try to look at these ways, which of these are your normal way of showing yourself to the world? Is it by the way you dress? Is it by the way you behave? By the movies that you watch, or the company that you keep? Or is it because of the language that you speak? Okay, so your language is you. Okay, so let's now move on to the next. So there are actually different types of identity. Well, let's have a rundown of that. So the first one is psychological identity. So that's how we view ourselves mentally and emotionally on our own. Who am I? So I'm Ginaline, I'm a teacher, I'm a mother, okay, etc., etc. So ourselves mentally, emotionally. So I am strong, I am happy. You try to tell that to yourself, okay? And later on, that will be projected also by your language. So individual identity, that will make you different from the rest. So even if there are five sisters in the family, all of you are girls, okay? But you are different from the other because you have your own. So that's who you are at your core. That's your individual identity. Then we have also social identity. That's when you become member of the group. Okay, how we portray ourselves in social situation. So when you are with your friends and classmates, you behave differently. When you are with the elders, you also behave differently. And sometimes if you don't, they will call your attention. Okay, so that's one of the contexts wherein we are going to change now the way we project ourselves to the world. Then we have what we call collective identity. So, for example, you are students, you say UC students, University of the Cordillera students, or University of the Philippines students, UP students, or UC teachers, or teachers in general. That's a collective identity. So, I belong to a particular profession called teaching. So, that's a collective identity. The other one is cultural. So the Filipino culture, and then that can be further divided into different cultures. So we have the Cebuano culture, the Kankanae culture, okay, the Ilocano, the Pangasinense, and all that. Those are parts of the cultural identity. And then let's go to the linguistic identity. Your linguistic identity is your identity as a speaker of one or more languages. And I think all of us are no longer monolingual. All of us are multilingual because we speak more than one language. So in school, we speak English. With our friends, we can speak English and Filipino and or Tagalog. We call that in the Philippine setting Taglish. Okay, but in other countries, if we don't know how to speak their language, we stick to English so that more or less we can better understand. We can be better understood by the other group. Now, linguistic identity can be a product of our linguistic expertise. No, how well do you speak the language? For example, the English language. So they say that the Filipinos are one of the best speakers of English. Okay, they say, okay, you can always agree or disagree. The others will say, we are better than the Filipinos. Okay, we always believe in that. But anyway, our language identity will always go back to the way our facility to use that language. Another is, of course, our affiliation. No? Affiliation means our membership to a particular group. So, for example, in the Philippines, I just would like to make use of the Philippine example. The students in UC, for example, based on my observation, they have this code switching. So they speak in English at one point, they speak in Ilocano at one point, and in one sentence, Ilocano and English all together. We call that code switching. Okay, so that's one identity. The Filipinos are good at code switching. So that's an affiliation to a group. Okay, so I'm not sure with the other groups. How about the Indian, the Pakistani, and the people from Bangladesh? When you do you do code switching? Okay, that is also part of your linguistic identity. And then we have also the familial inheritance. So when we say familiar inheritance, that means that whatever your family is speaking, whatever the language of your family is speaking, most likely you're going to speak that language too. Okay, so that's your identity. So for example, in my case, I am actually a product of a Cebuano mother and an Ilonggo father. So I am now torn between uh, being an Ilongga and being a Cebuana. But what I am now, I speak English, I speak a bit of Tagalog, but I cannot speak Ilocano, which is, the more or less the language that is spoken in the place where I am living now. But I play safe by just using the English language or the Tagalog because it's part of my linguistic identity. Okay, so those are the types of identity. Now, there is a concept that is called multiple identities. So, you as a person can have multiple identities. So, in the past, no, they say, some research, okay, said that an individual has a single static identity, but that is not actually true, no, because as you can see in yourself, you can actually transform depending on who you are with. Okay, the group that you are with. So if you belong to a group that speak English only, definitely you cannot speak in your own language. Otherwise, you will not be understood. Okay, so you try to, try to go with the flow and you speak. So that as each individual has a multiple identity. So your identity as a person, identity as a social identity, your personal identity, your linguistic identity. So many in one person. Now, the problem will come if, you are a product of different nationality. For example, you have an Indian parent, a father, and British mother. So that is now the problem as to what you will embrace. Okay, so normally, what we embrace is someone that we are close with, something that is around us. So in my case, I will just make use of my case. I've been in Baguio for 22 years, and until now, I find it difficult to speak in Ilocano, but I can understand a bit. Okay, so I'm trying to. So when I'm with the Ilocanos and they start talking, so my identity is that of an ignorant, innocent. I would say a bit of ignorant because I don't know, and sometimes I'll just say, "You're speaking German. I could not understand. Can we shift to English, please?" And then we just laugh. So I made it as some sort of a joke sometimes. Okay, and so when I start saying that, okay, I will shift to my normal self. Okay, let's speak in English so that we'll be safe, we will understand each other. Okay, so that's multiple identities. Okay, now, um, wait for a while. Before we go to that, okay, so multiple identities actually, class, means that at times, now we have different identities depending on the situations that we are in. So I think I already have given an example. So one example is this. So I was actually tasked to talk, okay, and my audience are all teachers. Okay, so when I talk to them, I automatically put on my teacher identity. So when I put on my teacher identity, I always address my audience as class. And I think I did that a while back. That's my identity, automatic default. Okay, because that's what I've been doing every day. So I could say that this is my primary identity, my being a teacher. But sometimes I can be a friend too. Okay, but I can be a sister. I can be an elder. Okay, if someone will ask my say on the matter, if you have problems and all that. And sometimes within ourselves we have also identities that are contradictory. So contradictory because there is something you would like to show to the world, but you could not show to the world because you're afraid to be judged. Okay, so contradictory identities. Or sometimes you happen to belong in a group, which at some point or another you don't agree with their views. Okay, so now you are torn between being a member of that group still as part of your group identity, or you are going to remove yourself from that group so that you will not be anymore a part of that group. So that's a problem with multiple identities. Now, multiple identities, there is such concept I would like to work on, and that is actually narrative of self. Okay, so it's a story. The narrative of self is the story we tell ourselves internally, okay, that will help connect and hold our multiple identities together. So it's sort of you have identity one, identity two, identity three, and then you try to connect them together in a form of a story. So this is some sort of a narrative, okay, that is internalized, okay, that you internalized, and then that is evolving story of your life, so that you can clearly see the answer to the question, who are you, or who you are. Okay, so that's the narrative of self. So as you grow older, okay, when you were young, you were carefree, okay, you are so dependent to almost everybody. But when you were detached from your parents, when you went to college, for example, you go to other place, you will now be on your own. So you'll say, I have to be strong, I can do this. So you tell yourself who you are, to remind yourself who you are. And then, okay, in the past you did it, so definitely you can still do it now. So you try to, talk to yourself, some sort of a storytelling, your story that you tell yourself, so that more or less you can stay sane. Okay, so that's the narrative of self. Let's move on to uh, the multiple identities. Actually, multiple identities can be divided into two. So the primary identity and the situational identity. From the word alone, situational identity, you have the choice to change it depending on how what the situation is calling you to do. Okay, so let's take a look at the example if there is here. Okay, so I just would like to highlight primary identity is your set of values, beliefs, and experiences that define you as an individual. And I would like to highlight, class, no, primary identity does not change significantly over time. So this is your primary identity. As I have mentioned, I think my primary identity as a person, if I will be asked, it's that I am a teacher. That's my primary identity. The rest will just follow. And my being a teacher will not significantly change over time. Okay, but other identity that I have can change. So identities that we are using depending on the context that we're in. Okay, so what are the different contexts? Okay, I are you going to be a member of the group or not a member of the group? So yeah, you have to decide. Are you a member of the group? So that's in group, or are you not a member of the group? Okay, because that will also tell us now our sense of belonging, and our sense of belonging also is always linked to who we are. And then we have also the covert and overt prestige. So I think prestige now is something that we would like for ourselves, something that we have to enjoy. And prestige in this context is actually divided into two. So we have the overt prestige, the one that a lot of people are liking, the one that people love. Okay, it's the more popular variation or variety, and the covert one is the opposite. And it is actually particularly true to a language. Okay, we will go back to covert and overt prestige later on when we go to the language and identity intersection. So again, I'll repeat, the overt prestige is the popular variety, the one that is considered high in quality and nature, while covert is the hidden or the unconscious. And the saving face, for example, the saving face, no, when you communicate with others, you're putting forward your face. Okay, so that's why there is such thing as saving face. So that's why, class, that's why, when you when someone asked you, "Am I pretty?" Okay, and you definitely know the answer to that. Okay, but you would like to save the face of the person, says, "Yeah, yeah, you are pretty," but deep within you say, "I think I'm lying." Okay, so sometimes you have to, make adjustments. Okay, so these are the factors that you have to, check. So one is the prestige of the choice, and then either membership, okay, and of course maintaining relationship. So sometimes, okay, sometimes um, even if you're already mad, okay, but you don't want to lose your cool. So what do? You just smile, grit your teeth, and say nice words still. Okay, so that's your, although in reality your identity is that you'll easily get mad. Okay, you can throw plates everywhere, kick the chairs and all that. But if you're in a particular situation and you are with different people, then you have to behave. That's why they say you behave. Okay, so that in Filipino setup, umayos ka. Okay, so I am doing now translation. Okay, umayos ka. So if you are somewhere, okay, away from your home, in at your house and in your home, you can be who you are. Your parents can understand you, your siblings can understand you. But once you go outside of your, okay, of your home, and you will be with other people, you have to be mindful. Okay, mindful of how you're going to project yourself to them. That's an example of situational identity. Okay, so still under multiple identities. Okay, now I would like to highlight one more thing: identity formation. So from the word identity formation, this is the change through time. Okay, so change through time, meaning that identity formation is always ongoing and it's a lifelong process. So therefore, what you are today may be different tomorrow. And what makes the difference? It's it might be your experiences, it might be the place where you are now, or it could be the people you are with. Okay, so identity, okay, is dynamic. Okay, it changes with our life experiences. So if you used to be kind in the past, and people tend to abuse you, then you have to change. You become, what I say, palaban, or we will become a fighter. Okay, that's the direct translation, palaban, fighter, or someone anybody cannot meddle with. Okay, and the other view is that, and that's one thing I don't want you to consider. Now, once we reach adulthood, our identity was set in stone. That's not actually correct, because identity formation is a lifelong process. Okay, so what you are now will change, okay, in the future, depending on how you react with the forces of life to you. Okay, so after identity formation, okay, there is what we call individual control over identity. Okay, so you are actually you actually have power to control how you're going to project yourself in the world. We call that agency. The degree of control that you have over how you're going to project yourself is what we call agency. And agency is divided into two. The first one is agentive, okay? And the other one is non-agentive. So the difference between the two is that in the first one, you have the power to control, something you have control over. And the other one is something you don't have control over. Okay, let's analyze. What is it in your life that you have no control over? Mm. One, you're being born a Filipino. Do you have even a choice? No, you were born a Filipino, or you were born Indian, or German, or Korean. Okay, that is something you cannot control. Okay, that's non-agentive. But there are other things you can control. Okay, you are Korean, you cannot speak English, you go to the Philippines. Okay, you study English, and so that you will have a new identity. And for example, you don't like the variety of English in the Philippines, and if you can afford it, you go to South America or North America or in Europe, so that you can have other version of a language. So control over identity, okay, is something that we have. The only thing that we have to ask ourselves is that, do we have control over it, or we don't? Okay, so the ones that we can control, we call them agentive, and the one that we cannot control or we don't have control over is non-agentive. So I will ask, is education something we can control? Something we can control? Yes or no? Yes, you can say, I would like to go to the University of the Cordilleras because the students there are motivated. Okay, so that's your choice. Or I would rather go to the University of the Philippines because the students there are blah blah blah. So you can come up with your own choice. Okay, so that you will be able to, have your own social identity and group identity. So among students, they have their own identity as a UC student, UP student, okay, SLU, all that. Okay, I think no, the other audience don't understand that because that's not something local. Okay, the university in my area. Okay, so that's again individual control over identity. There are two things. Okay, agentive and non-agentive. So I would like you to pause for a bit and try to look at yourself. If you have the mirror now, you look at this yourself at the mirror, and then you ask yourself, "Who am I?" And then you tell yourself, "Why I am here now." Try to recall your narrative of self. How did you arrive at this particular point in your lives? What were the challenges you have faced? And what are the problems that you might be facing in the future and all that? And you ask yourself, which of these I can control and which of these I don't have control with, over with. Okay, so that's um, identity control. Okay, now there are two items that I would like to discuss, okay, under individual control over identity. Aside from something that we can do and something that we cannot do, there are two concepts I would like you to understand. So the first one is the symbolic capital, and the other one is the symbolic violence. A while back, I discussed overt prestige and then covert prestige. You remember that? Okay. Now let's remember that once again and let's connect to this one. So, symbolic capital is the prestige that individuals get based on how they present themselves. Okay. So, for example, uh, I will use myself as an example. Basically, I am an Ilongga. Okay, I am an Ilongga, and there is actually a distinct accent to that. So it's a sing-song quality. If there are some Ilonggas in the audience, you can actually relate with me. Okay, your tone, your accent is different. Okay, but sometimes we don't use that when we are with other people who are speaking the more prestigious variety of dialect or language. Okay, so that's the prestige. That's the symbolic capital. So that is the type of language or everything, the type of language that is considered to be more powerful. Okay, for example, English. If you speak English, you have the symbolic capital. Okay. People will look up at you as someone who is intelligent even by virtue of you capable of speaking in English. Well, as the other one, the opposite is the symbolic violence. These are the negative repercussions that individual face based on how they present themselves. So, for example, your belief. Okay, sometimes not everybody is strong to show to the world who they are. So they try to hide who they are because they're afraid of the negative repercussions, okay, that they will face once they are going to show to the world who they are. So again, I would like to highlight that this symbolic capital or symbolic violence might either result from your strategic choice. So it can either be your choice or you don't have choice over them. Okay. So for example, you are a woman, but you feel like a man. Okay. So how will you project your identity now? You're torn between projecting yourself as a woman or you project yourself as man trapped in a woman's body. But if you're going to declare to the world that you are a woman, if you're a man trapped in a woman's body, they might persecute you because the society is still not very open to that idea. That's what the LGBTQ members are feeling now. They are afraid, so they hide in the closet. Yeah. So yeah, it actually is within our choice. So we can have the choice. Only that sometimes we cannot face the outcomes of the choices that we make. Okay, so again, I'll repeat, we have the symbolic capital and symbolic violence. So if it is positive, that's symbolic capital. If it's negative, that's symbolic violence. Okay, let's move on to the next one. Okay, so we have multiple identities. Now, I will move on to cultural identity because this is something related to language as well. Okay, our culture, okay, our language is the vehicle of culture. Okay, that's one characteristic of language. So, because of the language that we speak, we become a member of a particular culture. Okay, so among the Filipinos, if we speak English, we have the Philippine English. If we speak Ilocano, that's our cultural identity. So members of the group share, number one, common language, a common set of values and beliefs. Okay, and that is common class. Okay, a common language, a common set of values and beliefs, and the other one is that they might, no, might share common ethnic background, ethnicity, and also geographic origin. So, for example, in my case, I now live in Baguio. Okay, I'm in Baguio now, but I was born and raised in Mindanao. Okay, so I could have a Cordilleran identity because one professor told us before that once you already have lived in an area for 15 years, then it's safe to say that you already is a member of that particular, cultural group. Okay, so I've been here for 20 years, so basically I become a member of that group by virtue of where I am. So that's geographic location. Okay, so even if I'm already in Luzon, particularly in Baguio, okay, my cultural identity is always anchored to where I come from. Okay, so that's one. Okay, so that's cultural identity. Okay, I would like you to take a look at, then why is it that I highlighted cultural identity aside from the multiple identities that I have discussed a while back? It's because culture is a defining feature of your own identity. So when you say you are a Filipino, so I declare a while back, I am a Filipino. Okay, it's part of my identity. And so if people would like to get to know me, they have to read about what are Filipinos like. Okay, so they can read it up. And so they have a, what you call hypothetical image of a Filipino. And if they want to have an authentic experience, then they have to mingle with a Filipino so that they can tell what makes a Filipino person or a Filipino identity different from others. Okay, so the shared values, customs, histories, characteristic of a particular culture have a very strong influence on how a person behaves, thinks, and views the world. Okay, so our culture, okay, more or less na affect the way we look at the world. So if our culture is conservative, okay, then we find it difficult to accept the changes that is going on around us. We could not accept that a woman can love a woman and they can even marry, or we could not accept that a boy can love a boy because a boy in your culture maybe a boy is only for a girl, something like that. So again, your culture, okay, and eventually it will manifest on your language when you're going to express your views about it. So it influences how you think, how you behave, and most importantly, how you look at the world. And how you look at the world actually is made known, is manifested by your language when you're going to share it to the rest of the world. So they will know how you look at the world by virtue of your opinion, okay, your say on the matter, and you can actually do that by virtue of your language. Okay. Now, so there is this idea that if you have one cultural group, you have one cultural identity. If you have multiple cultural group, you have also multiple cultural identity. But then again, I have highlighted already that these are only multiple. Okay, we have also multiple culture identities. So we have multiple identities. Okay, multiple culture identities. Okay, so I would like to highlight on the torn between two worlds. So I actually have watched. I forgot the name. No, I forgot the name of the one who spoke, but the title of the presentation is "Both Not Half." So he was actually talking about his problems being torn between being a member of a one race and another race, or one nationality over another nationality. An Indian father and a British mother. And in his talk, he said that mixed race is a problematic term, okay, because it divides the person. So even if you have a multiple identity, you are still you. You are still one individual. So the new perspective is that we can actually flip back and forth from our culture, from one cultural identity on towards another, depending on the context. So for example, I am here in Baguio right now, so when I mingle with people here, I try to be like them. I'll try to speak their language. I'll even follow their intonation and all that, so that I'll become a member of the group. So remember the in group, out group last time? Okay. And then if I go back to Mindanao at one point or another, then I will speak my language. But if you were to ask me now, I'm quite afraid because I no longer have the vocabulary. Why? Because it has been a long time I did not speak it. Okay, that's also one. The lost identity. Okay, so lost identity. I don't know if you have experienced that. You are a speaker of a particular language, but you stay away from that group for the longest time, and then because you stay away, you try to adapt to the new language that you're exposed to, the language of education, the language of school, the language of the home that you're in, and then when you go back home, you find it difficult to switch. Okay. So later on, we talk about switching. Okay. Then the style. So we can actually flip back and forth. Okay. Remember when was the last time you went home? Okay. And what language did you use? Is it the language that you have been using now, or you try to use the language of people at home? No. So that's the idea. Okay. So we have also multiple culture identities. Okay, let's now move on to, okay, this is already I was actually looking at the um, outline. So now, I already have discussed the first segment of my discussion. I'll discuss about identity, definition of identity, okay, the control that we have over it, the identity formation, that it's a lifelong process, etc., etc. Now, given that information, now let's connect it to language. So, what is language, by the way? Okay, so we say that language is our primary tool of expression. It is one thing that we use so that people will understand us. It is the basic tool in communication. It is the basic tool in projecting ourselves. Okay, that's why when you're asked who are you, you use words. I am Gina Lynn. I am a Filipino. I live in Baguio City. You use words. You use language to tell the world who you are, so that you can project to the world who you are. You use language. Okay, not sign language, but sign language. Okay, language. Okay, so let's have a two definition. I only come up with two. So language can be defined as a system of communication comprising codes and symbols which are used by human to store, retrieve, organize, structure, and communicate knowledge and experiences. Okay, so if you would like to tell a story, use a particular language. Now, your language that you're going to use in this story will depend on who your listeners are. It reminds me of my experience in the past. I was young then, I was ignorant and all that, and maybe I was too, what's the word? I'm too proud of myself that I tend to, forget the very essence of communication. I remember one time I was asked to speak in the church during the youth. I think it's a youth conference, a youth convention in our church, and there was some sort of a competition in preaching. And because they believe that I can speak English well, and I had confidence at the time. Uh, in Filipino, makapalang mukha. Okay, okay. I don't know how to translate that in English so that the rest of those who are here who are not Filipinos can understand. Who has thick face, okay? I was tasked to represent our group. And so I was there on stage, speaking in English, highlighting my speech and all that. And bam, I was so sure of myself that I will win the competition, only to be disappointed. And you know what they told me? Because majority of my audience did not understand what I said because I used English. And it so happened to be in a remote area. And majority of the ones who listen actually are the old people, and they are not familiar with the English language. So in that case, even if my delivery was great, my content is great, but I was still a failure because there was no transmission of message. Okay, so the language, I fail in the language department. So that's a very good lesson for me. And then maybe that's one of the reasons why I go for language studies. I become an English teacher. I become a language teacher because at one point in my life, I experience, I'll say, defeat, okay, because of too much confidence over myself that I can speak a particular language. But language can only be useful if it is shared by the people you are communicating with. That's why it says here, um, used by human, okay, to share their experiences. Okay, then let's another one. It is a primary instrument in the expression, transmission, and adoption of culture. So, adoption of culture. So, Filipinos, for example, we are Filipinos, but when we start talking, we speak in English. And others will be amazed, wow, you speak good English and you're Filipino. Yeah, if you try to relate it with our history, the reason for that is because we've been under the rule of the Americans. They came here in 1800s, 1898, I think, and then they made education free for all, and they make English as the medium of instruction, and then we embrace their culture. So that's why they say that one best way to describe a Filipino is little brown American. Okay, because we are exposed to the language and eventually we are part of the culture. Okay, so that's language is the primary instrument. Okay, the primary instrument, okay, in expression, transmission, and adaptation of culture. Now let's move on to the role of language. So this is now the third part, okay, of the presentation. The role of language in the development of identity. How is language instrumental in forming who we are? Actually, this is a very interesting one. Okay, so I would like to read some quotations that I find helpful in order for us to understand. According to Carrie Gibson, language is a complicated dance between internal and external interpretations of our identity. Okay, this one. Complicated dance between internal and external interpretation of our identity. When you look at someone in his white, blonde hair and all that, so you expect that that person can speak English, and then all of a sudden that person starts speaking in fluent Ilocano, and say, "Oh my gosh," you'll say, "See." So there is that internal and external interpretations of identity and language actually. So on the surface, you look foreign, okay, foreign, but when you start talking, you are like local. Okay, so that's according to Carrie Gibson. And then we have here a quotation. I think the next few slides will talk about, will show quotation. According to Hema, language is my identity. So English is my language. I have to be specific, Philippine English, because there are a lot of varieties. Language is my identity. So since I am a speaker of a Philippine English variety, so you expect that there are some unique characteristics of that language that is not true to other languages. Another one. Language brings with it an identity and a culture, or at least a perception of it. Okay, so yourself, when you bring yourself to another group of people, okay, uh, group of people, particularly if you're joining international conference, okay, not online though, the literal international conference, when you will be meeting people across the world, okay, and then you be together, and then in order for you to understand each other, you have to speak one common language, and that's actually English. Okay, so for you to understand each other. Okay, so language English is considered to be the language of commerce and the language of globalization. Okay, so language, your identity. But even if we speak English on our own, by just people listening to us will more or less differentiate us, okay, from the rest, because they are giving us an identity. So you're Filipino. How do you know how do you know that I'm Filipino? Number one, you look like one. Number two, you sound like one. And then they make a joke out of that. Okay. Depending on what type of English they use. Okay. Then another one is, according to uh, Khalid, he said that if culture is a house, then language is the key to the front door, to all the rooms inside. Without it, he said, you ended up wayward without proper home or a legitimate identity. Ayan. Okay, so that's another one. And then language is intrinsic to the expression of culture. Okay, It is important. It is your way of expressing who you are. Okay, you use language to show yourself to the world. Language is a fundamental aspect of your cultural identity, and eventually, no, it's part of your linguistic identity. It is the means by which to convey even your own innermost self from generation to generation. How do you do that? When you come up with memoirs that the future generation can read, okay, provided it's not destroyed to time, or you can come up with a capsule that will preserve it and you use it in that particular language. It is through language that we transmit and express our cultures and our values. I remember, okay, when I was young, no, when I misbehaved, because I was a misbehaved girl when I was young. When I was young, I just would like to highlight that. Okay, my grandmother always tell me words. Okay, but I didn't actually pay attention to that. And she's actually using another language, the one that I'm not familiar with. Okay, some different language, okay, that belongs to her generation. And she was actually telling me, calling the attention to my misbehavior. Okay, so in her words, there is actually the transmission of values, and she was telling me that, so that eventually I will be able to embrace the values that she would like me to have. But young as I was and ignorant as I was, I only realized the value of the wisdom of the words of my grandmother when I was already old enough and my grandmother was gone. So to those who have still grandmothers, she belongs to another generation, and sometimes she speak another language than you do speak. Okay, try to listen more and carefully, okay, because there is transmission there of values. Okay, so that's one. And then let's move on to, I think this is the last one before I discuss really the relationship between language and identity. Words, language have the power to define and shape human experience. Yes, of course. And it is because of language that I can name my experiences. It is because of language that I can speak now. I can make you understand what I would like you to understand. You can understand what I'm trying to tell you via my experiences. Okay, I can tell you my experiences because I have the language, I have the tool. And the language that I'm using right now is the English language. Although I would really love to speak in my own language, but that would be useless because majority of you will never understand me. Okay? So now, let's go to, and this is the last segment of my presentation. I don't know what time is it now, okay, because I was told I will be talking only for 80 minutes, okay? It's now 5:02, so that's still within an hour. So I'm still towards the last part. So language and identity. And the relationship of these two actually can be interesting and at the same time multi-layer. Okay, why interesting? Because there are different ways wherein we can make use of language so that we can either project, hide, distort our way of showing ourselves to the world. So there we use language to externally project our identities. Okay, so we use words, okay, to tell the world who we are. Okay, I am this, blah 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 blah. So you use language so that you can project your identity. But at the same time, when you are alone, when you are contemplating, when you are talking to yourself, you're also using language, right? You talk to yourself. You internally shape your identity so that later on, when you go out of your room and people will see you and people will talk to you, you are ready as to what identity you are going to project to them. So internally shape our identity means you use words to talk to yourself. It has something to do with um, the adjectives that you are using to yourself. For example, when you are feeling low and down and nobody is there to console you, say, Gina, you can do it. Gina, you are strong. So your problem, it's nothing. You are you. So you are talking to yourself so that you will have your identity of a strong person. Now, I think it's better if we um, try to look at it this way. Okay, so language and identity. So we use language to talk to talk about identity, and language to project identity. So these are the two words. No? So let's go to number one to talk about identity. So there are actually different ways of doing it. That for the interest of time, I will just make use of four. Okay, so these are the ways we can talk. We can use language to talk about identity. Number one is group labeling. Okay, I think a lot of people are very particular with labels, particularly with their things, their food. Okay, so what do you like to eat? Uh, Jollibee, McDo. So you try to label your choices. Then the other one is naming grammatical forms and making introductions. So I will discuss each of these individually. So let's go to the first one. So group labeling. Okay. So when it comes to group labeling, there are actually two. No, it's either you're a member of a group or an out group. And if you try to look at it, class, the pronouns are indicator of a group label. So when we say I, we, us, so that means you are part of the group. When you say them, you, then that's the other group. Okay, so that's group label, making use of pronouns. Then the other one is uh, this is one thing I would like to zoom in on. Sometimes group labeling may have a negative connotation. Okay, have you experienced that, class? That by virtue of you being a member of a particular group, you are treated differently because that group has a negative uh what's that, a negative background or a negative uh, something negative. Okay, so the term used to label various groups may carry positive or negative connotation. So for example, uh, group of scholars. Okay, so positive, group of scholars. Group of good for nothing individuals. So good group of good for nothing individuals, that's negative. Okay, so sometimes when we use labels, we have, it's not only sometimes, that most of the time, when we try to attach labels to people, we have to be bit careful because it might destroy, okay, it might distort their identity. Okay, so I just would like to highlight on this one. No, I am not sure if this will do. Okay, in group labeling, one thing that I would like to highlight is the politics and power behind it. Because in groups, there is, whether we like it or not, amongst and between groups, there are groups that are excellent. There are groups that are in the, the lower portion of the, the ladder. Okay, that there is a group that is considered to be excellent, and there is a group that needs to be helped. Even in the classroom, there is what we call the power group. The power group consists of the best students in class, and the opposite is composed of those who are absent all the time, and if not absent all the time, sick all the time, and those who are not performing. So that's a particular example of group labeling. But in group label, sometimes it is associated with politics as well. Okay, so if you would like to be associated with a powerful, I really don't want to talk about politics, but just for example, okay, during the recent election, the leaning, the winning group is that of Marcos, and the other one is trying to overrun that winning streak is the Lenis Robredo's group. And so if you want to be labeled as, as Lenis supporter, or okay, or Marcos supporter, that has something to do with your political beliefs. No, so even if you think Lenny example is weak compared to Marcos in terms of, label, you still would like to stick with it because that's how you project, who you are, your political identity and your choices and power. Okay, and the natives. Okay, I really don't like to, you know I don't know if this is true to you, but the word native in my concept, if you are told you are a native, it has a negative connotation. But if you try to look at it in the dictionary, a native is someone who were born and raised in a particular group. But through the passage of time, native means crude, uneducated, and all that. Okay, so there is a negative connotation. Okay, what's going on. Okay, so that's group labeling. Okay, there is politics and power, whether we like it or not. Okay, now let's move on to the next one. Okay, so aside from group labeling, naming. Okay, so do you like your name, class? Do you like your name? Okay, so or if you will be given a choice to change your name, will you? What will be your name now? Okay, so naming is how we choose to identify our children, ourselves, and our family and our friends. So that's why, class, your friends, your group has a name, right? Do you have your group name? Okay, according to your GC, you have your group name. So for example, in my case, we have the superwoman, super women. I have a GC called Super Women. We have also Mother Earth and Children. So we come up, or the fam GC. So you come up with a name, no, so that it is a part of your identity. Okay. So here the namings example ng naming is given name, Filipino name. So that's a Filipino uh, given name, family name. So Ginalyn Villar Resurrection. So normally that's how we introduce ourselves. Our first name first, and then our last name. Then there are some groups of people who come up with their family name first, followed by their given name. I think the Chinese is one. And there are also culture, okay, that has only one name, their given name. No family name, just the given name. I actually searched on this, and I've seen Myanmar, Malaysia, India. So I'm not so sure if it's true, okay, but that's what I've read, single name. And then there are also many names to capture the entire family history. So I believe there are some in the audience with four names, not one name, not two, not three, but four. Why? Why is it that they are coming up with a lot of names so that they would like to capture the entire family history? So in the name, in the person's name, there is the name of the grandfather, the name of an uncle, the name of the father, and finally the name of the boy. So all rolled in one. So how, I don't know how they react to that, but I have seen videos, funny videos about people who actually don't like that they're given a lot of names. Okay, but that's one, capturing our identity. And also naming our children after someone. Okay, so actually I asked my mother, because I sort of don't like my name. Okay, Ginalyn. Okay, so I sort of asked my mother last time, no, Mother, why did you give me a name of Ginalyn? Because I really would like to be named Halshen. Halshen means carefree. So I said, if I will have children in the future, one of them, if I have a girl in the future, I will name one of them Halshen. Because the meaning of Halshen, naming the Halshen is, the meaning of Halshen is carefree, happy. So I would like my one of my children to be that, and I would like myself to be that, carefree and happy. So I would like my name to be Halshon. But of course, it's beyond my control that my mother named me Ginalyn. So I asked my mother, Mom, why did you name me Ginalyn? And you know what she said? Okay, it actually is funny. And she said, because at that time there was a beauty contest, and the winner's name is Ginalyn. So I laughed actually, because I think my mother gave me a name, Ginalyn, name after a beauty queen, so that eventually I will also turn beautiful like her. I just don't know if it's a good thing or a bad thing, but that's how I was named Ginalyn, because I was named after someone that my mother has seen during the time of her pregnancy. And then sometimes we use nicknames. Okay, that's naming. So nicknames. So try to recall the different names, okay, that you were given. Okay, so to your mom, you're called sweetheart, honey, okay, loves, okay, and a lot more. So this is actually more of a personal note. Okay, you are given a false name. That's why it's called nickname. Yan. So we have also patronymics, or the son of, the daughter of. Okay, so give the name and then the daughter of, the son of. That's the Russian. Okay, so that's also one way of projecting our identity through our name. So when you hear the word Maria Corazon de Jesus, okay, Maria Corazon de Jesus, I hope that nobody in the meeting right now is named Maria Corazon de Jesus. So if you have heard that name, most probably, okay, you will say, he might be Spanish. Okay, but don't assume right away, because sometimes, no, okay, why did you say that that person is Spanish? Because Corazon de Jesus is Spanish sound names. Okay, but you say Johan, Yunji, that's Korean. Okay, Shin, Ling, Lin, that's Chinese. Okay, so you know by virtue of the names, okay, about their uh, identity, nationality. Then let's go to the next one is making introductions. So, as part of our social activities, okay, as part of our social activities, we meet people, we project ourselves to them, we project our identity to them. And one way for us to do that is making introductions. And in connection to the power relations that I have mentioned earlier, so there are actually two ways wherein you can do that. So, there is what we call symmetrical introduction. So, symmetrical introduction meaning that the persons you are trying to introduce to each other are of equal power. OMG. I did not check the R. Sorry for that. Okay, equal in power. Only R. Okay. Kyle, this is Camille. Camille, this is Kyle. So there is equal power. So maybe there are just teenagers or youngsters, or maybe they could be deans, or they could be president of a particular group, but both of them are presidents or students, so they have equal power. And the other one is the asymmetrical introduction. Asymmetrical because you try to highlight the power differential. So that means one person is over the others in terms of power. So for example, Gina, this is Dr. Resurrection. Dr. Resurrection, this is Gina. So if you notice, class, by virtue of language, you already have highlighted how powerless Gina is compared to Dr. Resurrection. Because Gina, no title at all. Just Gina. No, not even a miss before Gina. Okay? But Dr. Resurrection, there is the, the label, or okay, Dr. Resurrection. I hope soon I will be a Dr. Resurrection as simply Gina. Okay, so that's making introductions. And now let's uh, summarize the making of introduction. So you can signal the power relationship between yourself and the other people by the way you introduce yourself. So if you use first names, okay, so try to recall the times you are asked to introduce someone. So in a friendly situation, a social gathering, for example. So when you use first names, that means equal in power. And if you give the title and the last name, you put others above yourself. So, for example, I am, and then you come up with a title. So, you put yourself above others to remind them that, hey, I am a doctor and you are not yet. But of course, as much as possible, of course, there are people who are having power trip, they would like to highlight on their titles. Well, we cannot blame them because those are hard earned, titles. Okay. But that's also one way to project our identity. So when you attach title to your name, the implication is that you are a hardworking person. You are willing to sacrifice your time so that you will become better educated and be above others. And but if you'd like to come up with a mixture of both, a symmetrical power in relationship, you can make use of both depending on the context. So are you in a formal setup? So for example, even if you are my friend, if I will be tasked to introduce you to the public as a speaker, then I will not call you on your nickname. I will not call you I will not use your nickname in the introduction. I will use your official name with the titles and all in it. Okay, so power relation can be signaled by the way you introduce others. Now let's move on to the last one. Okay, so the last one is the grammatical forms. Okay, so the grammatical forms, number one thing that I would like to highlight is also your vocative forms. So vocative forms are those that we use to call out to someone. Okay, so to call the attention of someone. For example, no power distance, you say, hey Gina, hey Gina, no power distance, you're the same. But if there is high power distance, more or less, you say, Miss Gina. Okay, so there is a difference between hey Gina and Miss Gina. But if there is a lower power distance, for example, for a child, okay, because a child is not a doctor yet, a child is not even a graduate yet, or maybe a child is not even in school yet, so we can simply say, hey, and then you give, the name, kid, okay, you, okay, so that's also one, okay. Okay, so those are the four. Okay. Then aside from that, we have also the uh, pronouns, so the grammatical pronouns. So I think I already have highlighted that a while back at the beginning. So grammatical forms, particularly pronouns, that's also one way for us to set aside, to set ourselves different from the others. So it's either we are a member of the group or not a member of the group. Okay, so let's now move on to the second one, because I have told you a while back that we can use language to talk about ourselves. Okay, so there are four ways. So naming, okay, introduction, and all that. Now let's talk about how to project our identity through language. Okay, language used to project identity. So there are actually three things there, or two things. So we have our style. Okay, so try to reflect on your style of talking. Okay, how do you use language? What is your language style? Are you majority generally formal when you use your language, or are you informal, or in between, or it depends on the situation you are in? So for example, if I'm addressing my class right now, I already have done code switching. I'll make jokes, I will share stories, and at times I will use the Tagalog language so that they will better understand it. Okay, because it's a classroom setting and the relationship is more or less personal. I am their teacher, they're my student, but this is an entirely different one. Okay, so I have to stick to one language only. Okay, now that's the style, the language style. So this is the what we call formal style, because you are delivering a talk and a lecture. Although personally, I would like to attempt at humor, but I could not do that right now. Okay, so let's talk about how to project your identity. Okay, so the first one is style. Okay, style. So style and style shifting. So you have your style, and your style actually changes. That's a shift. Okay, so you can make use of informal or casual language. Okay, you can use also formal language. You can also use slang. You can use long or short words depending on what you like. But bottom line, class bottom line, it depends on who you are with. Okay, so for example, if you are presenting in the classroom, okay, you can make use of formal language, okay, but as a part of your example, depending on the topic, you can use slang, okay, so that your classmate will laugh maybe, okay. So your style can shift, okay. That's why there is style shifting. So let's talk about the different, okay, what is style shifting? So style shifting simply is choosing to speak formally or informally based on how you would like to be perceived. Okay, so in other words, this is now the context. So what do you like? How do you like to be perceived? Do you like to be respected, or you like to be admired, or what? So you have to decide. So you have to choose now what type of language you are going to use so that you will be perceived in the way you like to be perceived. Okay, so that's one particular context. Okay, so for example, you're a student leader and then you are asked in an interview. Okay, so you're asked in an interview. So your normal style is a classroom style, friend, with the style that you're using with your friends. But this interview is televised. Okay, so can you do shifting? Yes, it depends on you. Okay, if you would like to change your image and you would like to come up with a more formal image of yourself, okay, or a more credible, so that's the word, okay, the more credible version, or you can even shift. Normally you speak in Taglish, or you speak in your own dialect, or in Ilocano maybe, or a particular dialect, but when you are asked for an interview, you speak in English straight. Okay, so you come up with a shift a shift in style. So you just have experience, or you should have done, no, style shifting. Okay, let's move on to what are the different styles of shifting. Okay, so let's take a look at this one. So I have a story to tell here. I am reserving my story. Okay, so let's do this. So convergence. So when you converge, from the word converge, you meet. attuning your own style of language to use in a group in order to fit in. So this is actually where generation gap come into the picture. So I would like to share the generation gap between me and my children. You know, my language is different from my children because number one, I'm a lot older than they are. Number two, I am a teacher, and most of the time I speak the English language and at times the Filipino language. But my children actually are different from me because they have different friends with different languages, and sometimes they merge this language, and they have their distinct language. And so in order for me to become one of their group, I try also to use their language. So example, okay, I asked my daughter, how is it difficult, anak? And my daughter will say, Medj. Medj. So what is the meaning of Medj? Of course, to those who are Filipinos and who are millennials, Medj is actually a shortened version of medyo. So instead of saying medyo, sort of. So if I were to speak, I will say it's sort of difficult, but my children will say Medj, difficult. So they come up with their own language. And so in order for me to become part of their group so that I'll fit into their group, I'll also try to use their language. And sometimes they make use of a language, a particular terminology, and they all laugh. And then I ask, what? What? And then they told me, oh, mom, you don't understand. You belong to an entirely different generation. And I said, come on, tell me the meaning of the word so that I can use it too. Because my students are like your age. And so they try to tell me the meaning. So what I did is I attune my style of language so that I will fit into their group. So that's an example of convergence. Now, there is the opposite of convergence. So if there is convergence, what's the opposite? What's the opposite of convergence? Okay, some will say divergence, okay, because it's the extreme. Actually, it is called linguistic maintenance. So no matter what, no matter what, you don't want to be affected. You still maintain your language style despite of the forces behind you. So you don't care whether, okay, normally the reason for this, you're maintaining your maintenance of your language style is for you to reinforce your lack of membership in a group. So you would like to highlight that you are not a member of the group, that you belong to another group, and this another group have different language style. So you stick to that to highlight your being a non-member of the other group. That is what you call linguistic maintenance. You maintain it. But there is an extreme form of linguistic maintenance, and this is what we call uh, linguistic divergence. So there, it involves actually an exaggeration. I'm almost done. Okay, it is an exaggeration of language style to strongly reinforce your lack of membership. Ayan. So in other words, you try to highlight, you try to exaggerate your linguistic style. So for example, someone is talking to you in a konyo, okay, konyo language, a combination of, okay, here na mi, where na you, the very, very informal. Okay, here na mi, where na you, okay. So I am already here, where are you? So we try to combine that, the Filipinos are using that. Okay, so if you try to make the other person understand, okay, that you belong to another group, you exaggerate, no, your style, okay. So maybe to, I don't know if you call it to offend the other group or to make the other group rethink, okay, whether they would like to stay with their style or not, okay. But bottom line, class, style shifting is something that we can do. It's something that is within our choice, and the factors that is either we would like to become a member of the group, so that's a sense of belonging, and a belonging to a particular group is one aspect of our identity. Imagine if you do not belong to any group, what a sad life it will be. Okay, so that's style and shifting. Now let's go on to with the next one. Okay, so another way for you, no, another choice that you have in order for you to highlight your identity is when you come up with your own unique use of a language. So that is your own unique use of a language. That's your idiolect. So we can say that your idiolect is your personal use of language. So in my case, the Ginalin use of language, and it is different from my daughters, my mothers, my children. So the dialect is a version of a standard language. So there are some who said that dialect there is dialect is a wrong term because it is a language still, okay, if it is spoken by a lot of people, okay, but uh, for the sake of this discussion, uh, a dialect is a version of a standard language. Okay, for example, the Filipinos, okay, have different dialects. So there's Ilocano, Tagalog, Cebuano, Kinaraya, and all the other dialects. And when you use this, okay, in your own way of using that is your own idiolect. And when you use a particular, when you use a unique language, that's you. Okay, so I will give an example here. So when I'm talking to my children, okay, I use a very, what's the word? I use a very soft tone. So, baby, can you help me with this, baby? So sort of calling their attention, and they say, "Mom, behave." Okay, so and then I laugh. Okay, because that's the way that's the way I talk to them, and so sometimes they're okay with it. Sometimes they call my attention, but of course I could not use that tone. Okay, that particular use of language to other people who are not close to me. So it depends on the person I am talking to. So that's idiolect. Okay, that's also a choice. Okay, so now another choice that you can have, okay, about idiolect and dialect is these two options. So when you do direct leveling, what is the a dialect leveling? So when you do dialect leveling, you learn the standard language in order to fit in the group. Okay. So actually, I should have done the dialect leveling already. So that I can understand what my co-teachers are talking when they are not talking in English. So I have to learn that particular language so that I can fit in the group. But I still stick to my English and my Tagalog sometimes. And my idea is that they can still understand me, and that's me. That's Ginaline. Okay, Ginaline who does not speak Ilocano. Okay, yan, so direct. So you can actually control that. Okay, you can learn. Okay, so for example, you are an Ilocano or a Kankanayan, you would like to be perceived as someone with credibility and who can speak English, and then there are a lot of varieties of English. So you would like to approximate the Americans, okay, because that's I think what the Filipinos are trying to approximate. Okay, then we will work on accent reduction. Okay, so accent reduction is still a part of dialect leveling, but the concentration is only on the pronunciation, because our identity sometimes, even if you're not going to tell other people who you are, where you come from, when you start talking, more or less they can tell where you come from. So I remember this one time. No, I took a taxi. I was with my mother and my children, because we will send one of my children to the terminal because she's leaving. She will be going out. Okay, at that time she was going out at the time. So we went and ride a taxi. And while I was talking to her, I was actually talking in English, but I use an exaggeration. No? I exaggerated using our own language, our own dialect. And the driver asked, "Ma'am, are you from Mindanao?" And then I laughed, "Yes." And then the driver start talking in the dialect, and I start talking in the dialect too. So what happened? I shift my language because that is something that the situation required. Okay, so but in accent reduction, it's more on the how to pronounce. So it is something to do. It has something to do with pronunciation. Okay, because sometimes one way for us not to be understood is because of our thick accent. But I would like to highlight this: if you have your accent, celebrate it, because that's what makes you who you are. That's your linguistic identity. Although sometimes, because we would like to experience prestige, we would like to become part of a power group, then we try to live our own identity and try to assume a new one, okay, and try to speak the way they do. Okay, so we can always do that, and then you make use of the British accent, and then even if you're a Filipino, you use a British accent so that you'll fit to a particular group, and then later on you shift to Cebuano English or the Tagalog English or the Ilonggo English, and they can actually tell the difference. So that's accent reduction. These are the things you can do. These are the choices available to you. Okay, when you would like to have shift now in your identity projection to the world using language. Now, I'm moving to the last segment, last idea. So if we have multiple culture identities, we also have multiple language identities. And I think this is very true to almost all of us because we speak more than one language. So for example, one of you here is have a Filipino language identity. Some of you have an Indian language identity or Ilocano identity or a Korean identity or a Chinese identity all together as one so that it is just part of you so that you can just retrieve them every time you need them. For example, you're a Filipino and then you're talking to another Filipino and that Filipino is speaking in English. So that's an indicator that, hey, speak to me in English. But if you're both Filipino and the other person start talking in Filipino, then you can also talk in Filipino. So that's sort of, you adjust to the situation. Okay, so that's an example of multiple language identities. Okay, so other language identity. And remember that every time you speak another language, you carry the culture of that language with you. Okay, so that's one because language is a vehicle of culture. Okay, another last point. So last point, I hope that you can remember all that I have told you. Okay, last point is this. When you choose, when you favor, and it is a sad thing, really, really a sad thing. When you favor one language over the other, what happened? What happened? There is already what we call prioritizing, making the other language less important, making the other language more important, more prestigious, and the other one is less prestigious, okay, and etc., etc. And it is the choice you make, and the choice that you make is actually conscious. Okay, for example, you would like to maintain your nationality as a Filipino, but you would like to be perceived as someone who can speak the English language very well. So you try to forget for a while your own language and try to do dialect leveling, do the accent reduction thing, so that you will become an entirely new identity, entirely a new person with another linguistic identity. But again, class, I would like to highlight that your accent is really part of your identity. So when I start talking, you can actually tell that I'm a Filipino. Okay, but there are some who are good at it, and then I have to ask, are you a Filipino? Okay, because you are very good with accent reduction. Okay, so I forgot the name of the person, but he said, once you meddle with my accent, you meddle with my identity. Okay, so be proud of who you are. Okay, and you can actually manifest that through the use of language. Okay, last slide, if I'm not mistaken, is this is the sad thing I'm talking about: language loss and identity. Okay, this is something that we have to reflect upon. Okay, when you lose a language, you lose the identity that goes with that language. I told you a while back, if ever I will go back to my hometown, hometown means where I was born. They speak different language there. The language that I have not spoken for 20 long years. Now imagine if I'll go back there by December because that's my target. I'm telling you already. Okay, so if ever I'll go back there, then I will say I have to do a little bit of shifting in my language because if I go there and I speak in English, they might say ang yabang naman ito, or in Filipino, wow. Okay, so what's my yabang? So proud of him being capable of speaking in English. Okay, so again, language loss is something that can happen if we prefer one language over the other. The sad thing is that I would like to read once again: when you lose a language, you lose the identity that goes with that language. So At the end of my presentation, is this the end already? Uh, let me show this quotation. Okay. At the end of this presentation, again, I would like to highlight your language is your identity. So I could say, be proud of it. Okay, be proud of it. Use it. Okay, be part of that particular culture. Okay, it is easy to give up on your language. Yes, you set it aside. You speak another language so that you will belong to this particular group, so that they will perceive you as someone excellent, credible, etc. But the actual task is to revive and preserve it. So I don't know how we are going to preserve our language. Bottom line, use that language, but sometimes our situation does not warrant it. Okay, so I will now go to my next slide. Okay, so this is now the reflection on your end. After listening to identity, the types of identity, the control we have over it, and the reasons why we have to shift on our language use so that we'll become a member of a group or not a member of the group, we have to ask ourselves some sort of a reflection. This is a time for reflection to us. You ask yourself, which cultural identity do you belong to? Okay. Then which linguistic identities do you have or do you use? And then look at the way you use language. How do you talk about your identity? How do you use language to project your identity? So those are the questions I would like you to think about. Wait lang, time check. It's already 5:40. OMG. Okay. Uh, I will now give the last slide, which supposedly is my opening slide. So before I will end, I will throw the question back to you again. And these are the questions. Who am I? Who are you? Okay. Thank you very much for such a great audience. Thank you for listening, everyone.
Okay, okay. Thank you, Ma'am Gina. Wow, that was so amazing and that was so overwhelming. Right now, I cannot digest all the language and identity, but what makes me feel is that language is and identity is interconnected to each other. Okay, am I right, Ma'am Gina? They are
Yes.
interconnected to each other, and we are very careful on uttering a language because sometimes, not sometimes, all the time, we will judge because of that. Okay? And I think it is very important that we really, in an education sector, we we really must know, as a teacher, we really must know what would be the identity of our student for them to know what would be the best and suited strategies for them. Okay, thank you for that, Ma'am Gina. And we will back to you after the quiz. Okay, we will have first the quiz and just relax first. Drink some
Okay.
a few water
Okay.
if
I
you
think I'll take a
may.
glass of water.
Okay, the drink of water if you may, because you've talked like almost 2 hours, and all the topics that you have uttered, you really, I mean, when I am listening, okay, it's so overwhelming. I need to, process all the time because this is a very interesting topic, and it will help us. And being an educator, it would really help us as a strategy, on how to deal our learners. Okay? Thank you, Ma'am Gina. We will back to you. A moment. Okay po?
Yes. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Ma'am Gina. Okay, and we do have a lot of comments from our audience. I believe they are too overwhelmed then to all the topics that you have shared. Now, it's time for us to have a quiz competition. Okay, be ready with your phone. Okay, be ready with your phone because we are going to have our quiz. And after the quiz completion, the top 10 will be given a certificate. Okay? So please have the slidy.com and enter the code quiz IGP. Okay? Code quiz IGP. Okay, are we ready? I believe we are ready now. We will see who would be in our participants in our quiz. We will see who are they. first we will have first a video. Okay, first we will have first a video before we have a quiz. Okay. 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 Okay, we have our participants. We have Leia, Baisa, Rossi, Jean-Real, Genevieve, Sherilyn, Girly, Jezreel, and Ems. Thank you for joining our quiz for the session. Okay, keep it coming. The joining link is given in the comment box. Please take a look on the comment box that we have. The joining link is in the comment box. Okay. So thank you, Leia, Maria Teresa, James, Alche, JC, Marshan, Justine, Kyle, Yuji, Jezreel, Christina, Lloyd, General Baisa. Thank you for joining. Okay, we still have coming participants. Earl, Melinda, nice to see you again, Melinda. General, JC, Ali. Okay, Lord, I think we will start our quiz. So we will start our question number 1. So be ready, participants, teacher, on our quiz, because after this, we will given a certificate, free completion certificate from IGP, the top 10 winners of our quiz. Okay? So I think we are ready now for our quiz number 1. Okay, I think we are ready now for our quiz number 1. Can we show it? The first number 1. Be ready, teachers. Okay, define identity. What is identity? How you see yourself and how others see you? Characteristic that define you, or what other people think of you because of your actions? Okay, this is a very interesting question. Define identity. Okay, we will show the correct answer. Okay, congratulations, everyone got a correct answer. Congratulations, teachers. Okay, so that is the correct answer. So we'll see in a leaderboard. Okay, congratulations, Melinda, Denise, Michelle, Nico, and Charlene. Okay, so we move on to our number 2 question. Can we show it? What power does language have? What power does language have? It reflects and shapes individual and collective identities, or power is a social construct? Okay, what power does language have? Okay, show your answer. What would be the correct answer? Okay, 96% got the correct answer. Powered language. Okay, in our leaderboard, we will have Dennis, Melinda, Michelle, Sherilyn, and Janeline. Congratulations. Next, we will move to our third question. Okay, a group of people who shares a distinct culture, language, and identity is what? An ethnic group or an indigenous? It is a group of people who share distinct culture, language, and identity. So what would be the correct answer? Show it. Okay, 88% got the correct answer. It is ethnic group. Congratulations. So we will see in our leaderboard who will be on the top. Okay, so congratulations, Denise, followed by Melinda, Sherilyn, Michelle, and Rosie. Welcome to the leaderboard. Okay, next, our next question will be, what shapes our identity? What shapes our identity? Identity is shaped by the direction one takes in life, or identity is shaped based on the action of others, not your own. Okay, what will be the correct answer? Okay, show it now. What will be the correct? Okay, 88% got the correct answer. Shaping the identity is shaped by the direction one takes in life. Sorry. Okay, who would be our in the top of our leaderboard? We will see who will be our top. Okay, congratulations again, Denise, followed by Melinda, Michelle, Sherry Ann, and Rosie. Okay, we move on now to our next question. What will be our next question? Okay, which is an example of community identity? What is an example of community identity? It is an RIC number or an SGS student. Okay, which is an example of community identity? 2, 1, and 0. Okay, what would be the correct answer? Okay, 60% get a no, 60% get a wrong answer, but congratulations to the 40% got SGS student as an example of community identity. Okay. It is a little bit tricky questions probably, so that is why 60% got wrong answer, but it's okay, teachers. So we'll see in our leaderboard who will be leading this time. Okay, we will have on top Miss Cheryl Ang, followed by Rosie, Grace, Jameline, and Sherilyn. Congratulations. Okay, for our next question. Using inclusive language is important because it shows respect for others, it disrespects others. Using inclusive language is important because it shows respect for others or it disrespects others. 3, 2, 1, 0. Okay. What would be the correct answer? Congratulations! To answer shows respect for others. Okay, we will see who would be the leading this time in our leaderboard. Okay, congratulations, Miss Sherry Ann, followed by Rosie, Sherlyn. Welcome to the leaderboard, Miss Grace and Jemaline. Congratulations. Next, for our next question, please be ready. Okay, Choose the example below that uses identity first language. Choose the example below that uses identity first language. It is a transgender student or a person who is hard of hearing. Okay, three, two, one, and zero. Okay, well, we'll see what will be the correct. Okay, 68% get the correct answer. It is a transgender student. Okay, now this time who would be in our leaderboard? Okay, congratulations, Ma'am Jenny Lynn. Followed by Bea. Bea, welcome to the leaderboard. Next, followed by Nancy, Lovell, and Ella May. Congratulations. Next. Last three questions that we have: race, religion, language, and customs are the same thing. It is a true or false. It is true or false. Race, religion, language, and customs are the same thing. Three, two, and one. What will be the correct answer? Okay, it is false. Congratulations, who got the correct answer. So we will show in our leaderboard who will be the leading this time. Okay, it's Bea. Congratulations, Miss Bea, followed by Jemeline, Nancy, Ella, and Earl. Welcome to the leaderboard, Mr. Earl. Okay, next, last two questions. What is the difference between individual and collective identity? Collective, shared sense of belonging. Individual, personal. An individual is the same as collective. Okay? What is the difference between individual and collective identity? Show the correct answer. What would be? Okay. The correct answer is 99% got the correct answer. Collective, shared sense of belonging, and individual is personal. Okay, so who will be the leading this time in our leaderboard? We will see. Okay, still we have Miss Bea, Jameline, Nancy, Ella, and Earl. Now we move to the last question. The 18 Milan Conference wanted to ban signed language. It is true or false? The 1880 Milan Conference wanted to ban signed language. It is true or false? Okay. I think it's a one. Okay, somebody got 61% get a correct answer. Okay, congratulations. Who will be on the leading this time? Okay, congratulations, Ma'am Bea, followed by Gemily, Nancy, Ella, and Leia. Congratulations. We will give a top 10. Okay, so aside from what I've mentioned, Bea, Gemily, Rosie, Emily, Jercel, and July. I think it's July. Okay, congratulations, teachers. Okay, I believe you have really learned something from this topic, language and identity. Okay, we will go back, or we will have the video first for our how to ask question from to our guest speaker for this session. Okay, we will start with a question and answer portion. Okay, we will glad to have you here again, Ma'am Gina, Ma'am Gina Lean. Welcome back, ma'am. Oh,
Hello.
yes, nice to see you again, ma'am. Okay, so for this juncture, we are going to have our question and answer portion from our audience. So I will read some questions from the audience and I will accommodate the question. I will read the questions. Okay, we will have here research now believes from L.M. Wallace believes that identity formation is dynamic. How do we safeguard ourselves against negative repercussions on the process? Example, denial, identity confusion, and etc. Okay?
Great
Go ahead,
afternoon,
ma'am.
Sir Lloyd. Okay, such a difficult question, huh? Sir Lloyd used to be my co-teacher in the University of the Cordillera. So I have mentioned that identity formation is a dynamic process. It's an ongoing process. It happens on a daily basis, depending on the forces that we come our way. Now, in the process, there are some, some problems. Okay, so as you have mentioned, denial, identity confusion. I think we have to do one thing that we can do is we do a lot of reflection. What is it that we would like for ourselves? Okay, something that can make us value ourselves more. So, for example, there is something going on already. You know that you are not what you are projecting to the world, but you're afraid that you will be judged. No, so you have to ask yourself, which is more important to you, the judgment of the world to you or your celebration of who you really are? So again, you will always go back to what is more important to you. And sometimes what is important to you is not the popular opinion, but at the end, you have to, weigh the consequences. Okay, so I know that there are a lot of people out there who are still hiding their identity because of fear that they will be judged. But again, but again, okay, you have to love yourself. Okay, and one way for you to love yourself is find the way for you to be happy. And if one way for you to be happy is to show to the world who you really are, then you say to hell with what they say. Sorry for the word. Okay, I hope, Sir Lloyd, I have answered your question.
Okay, thank you for that, Ma'am Gina. That is very well said. Okay, we do have another question for you from Jacqueline Bessa. Ma'am Jack, or Jacqueline Bessa. Hi, Ma'am Janeline. How does language reflect and shape individual, collective, and personal identity? Thank you for sharing your expertise.
Thank you, Ma'am Jacqueline, for your question. So your question is, how does language reflect? It's on my usage of the language, how I use my language, and it also depends on the group that I am associating myself with. Okay, so that's the personal is how I use my language. Okay, how I use my language to project myself to the world, how I talk about myself to the world. That's my personal, the language that I use to show to the world who I am. But at the same time, I'm not alone in this world. I am also a member of another group, and so I try to speak the language that they speak. Okay, I try to, because again, it is easier said than done. Based on my experience, until now, I really find it difficult to speak in Ilocano, and that is actually the language that is spoken here by the majority, even among my students. And so I always tell them, I cannot speak the language, but I am trying to understand. At in a conversational level, I can actually understand. So how language shape my identity by my using my a particular language that is my own. Okay, I hope that I answered that question, Ma'am Jacqueline.
Okay, thank you, Ma'am Janeline. Indeed, language is really
Sorry for the
important because
overtime.
it's okay, ma'am. Language is really important because this is how we will identify by others. Okay, thank you for that. Indeed, you enlightened us. You shared with us the wisdom, the this language and identity that is really important, especially right now. that our learners are that doesn't know anymore what will be their identity. So do this for this lesson that you are sharing with us, we can have insight that we need to impart to our learners that they must go back of who they are so they could love their own identity. Okay, thank you for your contribution and your precious time with us, giving insight and your expertise, of course. No doubt, our viewers will be benefited today by the awareness they receive through your topic. And thank you so much. The IGP will really bless to have you, ma'am, to share with your knowledge and expertise. Okay, so for that, I would love to thank you all, my dear participants, our dear participants. The RGPs really love to have you here again and again, supporting all the topic that we have and supporting all the teachers too. Okay, from the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for attending in today's session. Hopefully, you'll learn, we have learned something new and we will implement it in our daily life. Please do not forget to collect your e-certificate and obviously give a check-in with IGP and please spread the information with your friends. We hope to see you all again next webinar. Thank you so much. This is Teacher Noreen, your volunteer host for today. Stay happy and stay safe. Goodbye.